or welcome back to the Night Sky Knitting Podcast. My name is Rachel, I'm your host, and I am a knitter based out of Ottawa, Canada, and this podcast is my chatty outlet to talk all things knitting, with occasional appearances by other crafts, but honestly not for a while, because I have a strong tendency towards hyperfixation. Knitting has been the focus of that hyperfixation for well over a year now, and if I don't have some type of chatty outlet for it, I will ruin all of my relationships by talking about knitting way too much. Today is Friday, May 6th. It is the late afternoon, and it's been about, I think, a little over 3 weeks since I last sat down and filmed a podcast, and I always find that at about 3 weeks I start getting antsy that I'm going to have a little bit too much to talk about if I don't record soon, and a little anything less than that, anything more than that just doesn't feel quite right. So, before we get into the good stuff, the 1,000 subscriber giveaway winner has been selected, and it is Mary McIntyre from Ireland. Here is her winning comment. I highly recommend that you check out the pattern and designer that she recommended, as well as the entire comment section on my previous podcast is full of absolutely fantastic pattern recommendations and designer recommendations as per the giveaway entry requirements, which was recommend an underrated designer in your opinion. And already I have so many patterns added to my favorites and added to my queue because of you guys. And if I didn't anticipate this being a long one, I would take the time to showcase some of those, but I'm thinking I will maybe do that next time when I'm a little bit less discombobulated from starting my new job and finishing finals. Not finish my degree, it's just a summer job, but still. And I think I will take some time to compile some really beautiful ones, but then it sucks because I can't choose all of them. Oh my goodness, I'm on a tangent. Mary McIntyre from Ireland, please email me at nightskyknitting@gmail.com. No symbols. It'll also be in the description box down below to claim your winnings, which are one digital pattern download of your choice and this mini skein set of Emily C. Gillies merino sock yarn. I will ship it to you, but I need your address to do that. So, Mary McIntyre, please email me. I await your email to send this to you. It's also really nice that Mary won, just anecdotally, because Mary is one of the very first people who ever commented on any of my podcasts and was one of my first ever subscribers. And that is a name that I recognize from months back podcast comment sections, who's always been very kind and encouraging to me. And while the intent of the giveaway was to thank all of my subscribers, both new and old, I was happy to see a name that I recognized and a name that has shown me kindness from the very beginning. So, that's that on that. On to my FOs. The very first of which is what I'm wearing. You might notice that I'm filming from a slightly different location. I'm filming 3 feet to the left of where I normally film because at this time of day, my little desk corner is a little bit shrouded in darkness, so I have moved to right in front of the window to hopefully improve the lighting situation, except I can already tell from the viewfinder that this is not showing up true to color very well. Okay, great segue into my first finished object. So the very first thing I have to show you guys is my finished fortune sweater by PetiteKnit, which, standing up, looks like this. Looks like this. I don't know if you guys can see, but there are all over eyelet clovers across the front, back, all down the body and the sleeves. It has a double folded collar, and I knit this in Drops Brushed Alpaca Silk in the color Sage, and it took me 4 balls and 8 grams of a 5th ball to knit the size small. And I am obsessed with it. This is currently my favorite sweater. I have been wearing it too much. I wore it 1 week, like 2 days in a row, and then I think another 2 times that week. It is I think arguably my favorite item of clothing right now. I really thought, I always knit things with the hope that I will love them, and normally I do, but this has really taken the cake. It is just something about this silhouette, the sleeve length, this kind of 3/4 length sleeve is just perfect for me. I always talk about how I don't like too long sleeves. I always want them, you know, bracelet length or higher because I'm short and I'm tired of having to roll things up. This length just feels so classic. You know, I can do a French tuck. I could do a full tuck if I wanted to, but I don't. Hangs really, really nicely. I love how the shoulders fit. I love this amount of ease. I could do maybe with just a teensy bit less, but I'm very happy. I'm very happy with the color, which in person is more green than is showing up. And just scoot a little closer. And I am seriously considering casting on another one. I think that this silhouette and this pattern, which I don't know if you can see because of how fuzzy the yarn is, but it is a raglan construction. I think this might be the next time I need or want a nice plain basic sweater. I might knit another one of these and omit the clovers and just do it as a raglan. And then I think I might also omit the double folded collar because as much as I really like them, I think it would be nice to have one without too for just a little bit more timelessness. Also, the neckline does kind of go up a little bit. I think something about using Surrey. Oh, I held this single, by the way. Well, okay, I have more to say. There's no reason to rush. I think just because of the gauge and this really super light and airy fabric compared to the double folded means it's not exactly lying flat like this. It does kind of go up like that as it settles on my body as I'm wearing it. And I don't mind that. I think it's kind of a nice little chic like mock neck thing going on. But I think for another version, which I'm almost already planning, there's yarn just out of frame for it. I think I would maybe get rid of that just so I can have a slightly different option and also make the yarn go a little bit farther. But I'm getting ahead of myself. Back to this one that already exists. Another thing that I really love about it is how incredibly lightweight it is. This sweater is only 108 grams, and I really just appreciate so much how lightweight yet warm yet airy it is. We know that alpaca is incredibly warm and insulating, but this kind of loose alpaca fuzz with the eyelets is really helping for the air to kind of still flow to and from my body, so it's nice and temperature regulating, and I really cannot get over how lightweight it is. I was worried that with the alpaca content it would be like a little bit too hot or scratchy, and I do sometimes, as always, around the neck do start to feel that little prickle, and I do notice myself every so often kind of going up and going scratch a little bit and going back down. But truly, this is just this absolutely hands down my favorite FO, I think, ever, in terms of just, and also this is kind of a bold color. I mean, not really. It's a sage. It's a grayish green. But I did intentionally choose it because it goes with so many of my pants, and I've been wearing it with almost every pair of pants that I have, and a couple skirts. But I have just found myself reaching for this time and time again this spring because I feel very pretty and chic in it. I feel kind of like a late 50s, early 60s, like, you know, glam modern lady, or, you know, Hollywood star, or Mrs. Maisel on the rare occasion she wears pants. The silhouette, the double folded neck, the shaping of the sleeve, it really just, I love it. And I'm so happy I knit this pattern. It was also, for me, a lot of fun to knit. There was certainly a lot of frustrations, and there were a lot of learning curves because I've mentioned this before, but there's a lot going on at the beginning. You know, you do this double folded collar in a yarn that does not have good stitch definition, so it's really hard to see your stitches. And then you start doing German short rows, raglan increases, and the beginning of the eyelet placement, which in my opinion, the pattern is not super clear and helpful with how to place the eyelets. I mean, it's not unhelpful, but I really had to have the pattern on hand, and at the beginning, this was not TV knitting, it was focus knitting. And I'm glad that I prepped for this sweater by choosing patterns that included techniques that this pattern did before I, attempted to tackle this one. And it sat in hibernation for a long time over winter as other projects took priority, but I really enjoyed knitting it. I really enjoyed the sections of stockinette, and then you took eyelet rows and then sections of stockinette, which kind of helped me see my progress a little bit more. And as soon as I got a little bored of one thing, another section started, and when I got sick of the eyelets, another stockinette section would start, and vice versa, which was really enjoyable. And then also because the body sections were so long, because it's quite a lot of stitches, okay, not really. Compared to the arms it is. But then by the time I finished the body, the sleeves felt like they were done like that just because I was hitting those eyelet rows a lot faster. And then I was done because it's a shorter sleeve. I followed this pattern to a T, except I went down one needle size and I'm knitting a slightly tighter than the recommended gauge because the sample garment is knit in 2 strands of mohair and it's meant to be kind of translucent. And she's wearing it with a very visible camisole underneath, PetiteKnit, the designer. I didn't want that look. I wanted an opaque sweater. And I got one. I was nervous that things would show underneath because this is a lighter color and I really like wearing undershirts in the wintertime because I get cold and I hate underwire. Can't tell. I don't think I could wear a black one under this and have it not show, but the majority of my others I think were good. But the one thing I don't like is that it says to cast off, this is meant to be knit on a 4mm needle with 2 strands of mohair held double. That is out of my budget. I don't know if I would like that. If I ever had to frog or go back and make to fix a mistake, 2 strands of mohair sounds like a nightmare. And also, I don't know if my skin could tolerate just mohair. I have one mohair plus superwash merino garment that I wear also quite a bit and really enjoy. I don't know if I could tolerate just mohair, but for all those reasons I went with alpaca silk, and I think because of how finicky either alpaca silk or 2 strands of mohair can be, the designer recommends just a regular bind off. In pattern, I went up 2 needle sizes and it is still so stiff. Can you see that? There's no give. I'm pulling. That's resting. Pulling. Nothing. And as I'm trying to show you, like as I stand up and I try and pull it down to show the full length while keeping it tucked, it's too tight to do that. And this tight bind off, because for the life of me, I cannot get a traditional bind off, like a classic one, to not be the tightest thing on earth. I have at this point, for some, including this, gone up like 3 needle sizes, has not made a difference. I shudder to think what would happen if I didn't. So I learned my lesson from the body, and obviously I can still get it over my head, but there is no stretch to speak of. And I do think it affects the fit down here. So instead of like lying like this, when I tuck it in for a French tuck, it like curls in because it's just so tight. So eventually, I haven't woven my end down there, I don't know if you could see it. I am going to unpick that and then redo it with a stretchy bind off. I think I have enough yarn, and if not, I have, another 17 grams of it. Oh, maybe it only took me 7 then, because I'm pretty sure the scale said 18 grams were left. Regardless, somewhere in that ballpark. This took me 5 skeins total, but 4 and a bit. I have a whole skein that I can just rejoin the yarn, we've got a couple more ends, and just keep going with the bind off, but I'm going to have to unpick this bind off, but I've just been too busy wearing it to do that. And so, yeah, I knit this at a 3.75mm, which I think is a US size 6. Might be a US size 5, one of the two. 3.75mm for this beautiful garment that I'm wearing the heck out of, and I'm this close to casting on another one. The only thing I don't like is the bottom bind off. I learned my lesson for the sleeves. They're a stretchy bind off. They are appropriately stretchy. I'm obsessed. And I don't recommend the Fortune sweater for newer knitters unless you are feeling a little bit bold, because there's kind of a lot going on. And if you do choose a Surrey silk or 2 strands of mohair, it's kind of difficult to see your stitches. And that kind of adds, it's not nothing individually about this pattern is difficult. It's just the fact that all of these things are happening at once, if that makes sense. And they're happening in a fabric, in a yarn, where stitch definition is not very good. and it's hard to see your work and catch mistakes. And there are absolutely points where I just fully like didn't do an eyelet somehow and didn't, oh yeah, here's one. Right smack in the middle, I just didn't do, oh, you can't see it. Right smack in the middle of the sweater, I missed an eyelet down there. There are a few instances of that across the sweater. A few times I was able to go back and add one, and then a whole bunch I was like, hope no one notices. So I have a few 3-leaf clovers instead of 4-leaf clovers, but I think that this is a PetiteKnit pattern that maybe deserves a little bit more hype. I do think it's interesting because I also watch a fair number of French language knitting podcasts because I've been trying to learn French for honestly just too long without having really achieved any amount of fluency. And knitting podcasts are a good way to continue to strengthen my ear and engage in French content that obviously like really appeals to me. And also there are a bunch of French language podcasters who are making beautiful things that really appeals to my aesthetic that I enjoy. And it's interesting because I found a few of them by looking last summer for instances of podcasters who've knit this sweater. And I think it's interesting how, I mean, that's kind of why some people are called influencers. Sorry, there's a tree just aggressively shaking in the backyard of one of my neighbors, but none of the others are, and that distracted me for a second. I think it's really interesting how, you know, people are called influencers because they literally influence others. You know what I mean? And I don't know if it's just a coincidence, but there are almost the only videos I have found where anybody talks about this sweater are in French, and I'm wondering if it's because it's kind of like how in English language podcasting we all kind of watch each other's stuff, and I'm wondering if that's why we see more of it in the French podcasting sphere. That's just like a little observation. Julie Miette of Apollonie, that's her accessories brand. She does knitting notions. That took me too long. She makes a bunch of knitting notions that are also really cute, but she's based in France, so it'd be far away from me. She's done 1.5 of these. She's done one. She did it in Knitting for Olive. It's gorgeous. And she's currently working on another one because it seems that she feels the same way I do based on her podcast, that this is just the most wonderful wearable sweater. And there's definitely also I think at least 2 Quebecois podcasters who've also, or videos, I think one is a yarn store and then another is an actual podcast, but I cannot remember which podcast it is who is knitting one of these. Anyway, I thought that was interesting. And so I was thinking, as I do quite often, about new potential projects, and I'm just so in love with this sweater that I genuinely think I would get so much wear out of a second. I'm gonna scooch a little closer. It's feeling a little small over there. So I was thinking, okay, if I choose an even more neutral color than this, and I maybe remove this neckline, what color would I want it in? And then I thought probably gray, if I'm honest. I like the color gray, or the shade gray. I think it suits my coloring. I think it brings out my eyes a little bit, and it just goes well with so many of the things I have in my wardrobe, which, as you guys know, is a priority for me. And I was thinking originally that I would just kind of wait for, you know, when I've cleared more of my stash and the opportunity presented itself, I would probably I was thinking, oh, I want another really lightweight lofty sweater like this, but I probably don't want another one in Surrey, because I don't know, I do worry a little bit about the longevity of this kind of fabric. So I'll just wait, and if a really beautiful DK weight gray that's really lofty appears, I'll get it, assuming that wouldn't happen for a long time. And then I was idly thinking through my stash, as I usually am, to ward off wanting to buy things, which doesn't always work because there are acquisitions later on in this episode. And I thought, wait a minute, I have this, which is 2 skeins of 100 grams of another type of Surrey silk in gray. I thought, oh, and these are both Emilia et Philomene Clémence base. Emilia et Philomene is the dyer and Clémence is the Surrey silk base. And this is 100 grams, no, it's 50 grams of Surrey silk, 74% baby Surrey alpaca, 26% silk. And this is in the color Poussière d'étoile, which I think means stardust. I have 100 grams of it, and so I have 600 meters of it. And I was like, wait, but when I got this, I knew it wasn't enough for a sweater for anything. I was originally, I got this as a souvenir when I went to Montreal, and I was feeling really bougie one day. I went to sporadically, and I got a little carried away, and I got these two. But I was thinking I think this is probably the softest yarn I have. And I was thinking it would be really nice for like a hat or a shawl, but I'm not really a shawl person. And I do have enough scarves, and I looked, and this kind of color is such a beautiful, stunning neutral. I would say it's like a smidge darker in person. It's really, oh, but look at how luminescent. I truly, just like, I don't know where the label for this one went. It's somewhere in my yarn bag. It's truly, oh, and this is a Canadian hand dyer based out of Quebec, if you couldn't tell from all the French, and sporadically, which is based in Montreal. I really think that I'm torn because, okay, long story short, this is enough to make another one of these for me, which I didn't think it was when I first bought this. And I think this is a little bit thinner than the suri I used for this, so I really would have to swatch it to see if the fabric would be thick enough for me to be happy with it. And I have to do some thinking about whether or not it would be best suited for a second one of these without the clovers and without the double folded neck, or if I stick to my original plan and make it a hat and or like winter accessories. Ooh, it's coming undone because I'm waving it around. Set, but it feels kind of perfect that in the exact color I was saying I wanted this in the exact same fiber that I knit my first beloved one, and pretty much the exact meterage that I would need has been existing in my stash, waiting for something especially precious. So weigh in down below if you have thoughts and feelings about if I should use this for some type of winter accessories, keeping in mind that it currently doesn't go with any of my outerwear, or if I should make it into another sweater. But I would have to swatch because, like I said, I think this is a little bit thinner, but this is just heavenly, which is why I feel like it should be around maybe my neck and my head, because that is by far where I am the most itch sensitive, and it's just kind of a constant battle between how much I love a mock neck and a crew neck and how itchy my neck gets when I wear them and my hand knits. But yeah, that is my very, very long spiel about the Fortune sweater because I love it. I love it so much, and I want you guys to know that, and I want you guys to consider knitting it for yourself. And I'm not usually a huge PetiteKnit stan. I like her patterns, but I mean, this is the first one that's pulled me in and made me think, yeah, I gotta knit that. And you know, maybe I've been wrong to be a little hesitant. I think it's just, I'm not ever sure if I really want to do that much stockinette. But, I mean, I'm about to bite my words with my next whip, but I'm in love. And check out the Fortune sweater if you're feeling a little brave. Also, something about this is, by choosing this, the Drops Suri Alpaca, I bought 5 balls. And each ball at my local yarn store that sells it in Toronto is, I think, $6 or $7 for 25 grams. And like I said, it took me 5. And so this was a very affordable project for me. And I think you should consider, if you want, making one also in Drops Alpaca Silk or Drops Brushed Alpaca Silk, because it is so warm, it is so lightweight, it is so classic, and I like it a lot. And I think this is a size inclusive pattern. I'm really sorry for not going back and checking before filming this. I know it goes from an extra small to I don't know if it goes up to a 2XL or if it's part of the ones that she's updated and modernized for, you know, what's now considered the bare minimum for sizing, which is a 5XL, but check it out. I think it's worth it. And let me know if you think I should knit one in this, because I'm very indecisive. Okay, so that's whip number 1, and it only took me 20 minutes. No, my goodness, not whip number 1, finished object number 1. Finished object number 2 will be briefer. I finished my socks, except I haven't blocked them or woven in a whole bunch more of the ends. I have been lazy. I love knitting colorwork socks. I don't like weaving in the ends. This is what I grapple with. These are the Rumphius socks by Emma of Bloom and Create, and I used my Emily C. Gillies Luck of the Draw Yarn Club. I'm sorry, I'm struggling to grab all the little balls. Here's what I have to offer you. Can you see that? I don't know how to, my hands are too small. They stopped growing when I was 10. Okay, can you see that? Yeah, sort of. I used the Emily C. Gillies Luck of the Draw Yarn Club for January. I have quite a bit left over of these two. I haven't weighed them, but I will, because my roommate has a kitchen scale and she lets me use it to weigh my yarn. And almost none of the contrast heel, toe, and cuff. And then like a medium amount of the other two colors that were most often used in the repeat. So I could definitely do something more with these 4. And so I'm quite pleased. Also, I think, without having washed and blocked them or woven in the ends, these are currently my best fitting pair of hand knit socks out of the gate. They feel amazing. I love them. I loved making them. This was perfect, the perfect amount of color work for me. I loved the repeat. I truly, I don't think there was anything about knitting these socks that I did not like. And I'm having a good day, but I just because I have 2 back-to-back FOs that I'm really happy with, there's nothing funky going on. These have just been 2 like really lucky moments. And yeah, I made a ton of mistakes in these, don't get me wrong. There's, for some reason, the color repeats just aren't quite right in a couple places at the bottom after I, picked up again after finishing the heels. It all kind of came out in the wash though. I'm so happy with them. I'm a big Bloom and Create fan. I'm a big Emily C. Gillies fan. And that's that. And that is my other finished object for the day. I have one more that I finished literally this morning in a meeting. And I'm halfway through weaving in the ends. And this is another pair of socks. And so this is a pair of socks that I am knitting for my... She is beauty, she is grace. This is another pair of socks that I'm currently knitting for my boyfriend's mother, because I think many moons ago I was making her admire a pair of socks I brought to their house to work on, or really that I was working on, I think on the train on the ride to their house. And I was making her admire them. And then I said, well, do you want a pair? And she said, oh no, I couldn't ask you that. And I said, no, yeah, I mean, you could. Do you want a pair? And she said, okay, yeah, sure. And 8 months later, here they are. I knit this in Patton's Croy for the everything but the heel, toe, and cuff, which is in Sanda's Garn Sisu, my demon yarn. The Patton's Croy colorway is Route 66, and it's this self-patterning yarn. And I managed to squeeze all of this out of one 50-gram ball of Patton's Croy. I have absolutely none left over. I think I literally have 2, I think I snipped off 2 inches after weaving in the end down here. Like, I really used up all of it to knit these. So that was incredibly satisfying because there are no scraps. She wears a 6.5, which makes this easier because Patton's Croy is a thicker sock yarn. If you haven't heard me talk about it a million times already, I'm a bit of a self-patterning Patton's Croy sock yarn fiend. And it's a little bit thicker, which means I get a sock I'm really happy with on 2.5 needles, and you can go down a stitch count sometimes, and I think they make really nice gifts. I'm really hoping these fit. I used a Fish Lips Kiss heel because I've noticed, I don't know, anecdotally it seems like people sometimes, when they see me knitting socks, they don't like the look of a heel flap and gusset, and they're worried it's gonna like rub along the pickup stitch line. And I mean, I can really tell people so many times that's not gonna happen, but I'd rather give them a gift that they're gonna look at and be like, oh yes, that is correct, instead of having the like placebo effect of like stitches rubbing against their heel, even if we know, us knitters, that a heel flap and gusset construction is better. Not that she's ever said that, but I worry. I enjoyed this. I did a 3x1 rib going down the front, straight down from the cuff. I really like it. I think it looks cute. I think my next pair of vanilla socks for me, I will do the same. And I did that for the front, but then not for the back. This is, I think, a 5-inch leg. And I don't remember what this name of Sisu Senna's garn is, but I feel like if you looked at colors online, you'd be able to spot which one it is. I do notice a difference in the thickness between the Sisu and the Patton's Croy, and I don't know if this really is an ideal mix, but I needed it to stretch that 50-gram ball. And I currently have this thing where I really don't want to use a self-patterning for the heel. I don't like the look of it. It's all of a sudden, it's this thing that I have going on, and that's what's holding me back from casting on a pair of vanilla socks for myself in some yarn that I bought recently in Vermont that has like a little bit of a micro stripe going on. So I can't find or choose a good heel color. And it's bugging me. And the same for a few more of my Patton's Croy 50-gram balls, because I have a bunch. I hope to always have a bunch because I love them. I think they're great for gifts. They're great for me. And I like knitting with it. And it's like it's between $6 and $8 a ball Canadian, depending on where you look. And that kind of price cannot be beat. Especially since I also have smaller feet, and I think I could also squeeze a full pair of socks for myself out of a 50-gram ball, provided I find a contrast heel. And before you ask, yes, I have checked. They only make a couple solid colors themselves, Patton's Croy, and they're all like gray and black, which isn't going to go well with like acquisitions preview like this, for example. So that's that on that. Going to wash and block those and then give them to her next week. My current plan is to always have one gift knit on the needles for the foreseeable future until all of my gift knits are done, which is probably going to never happen because I'm always going to have more gift knits to do. But that's just kind of the place where I'm at right now. That feels like a balance that's good for me. 1 or 2 projects for me, 1 project for somebody else. Got a lot of birthdays coming up. And then Christmas is always kind of around the corner, isn't it? So, and also, I don't know, there's still a lot of projects that I just kind of volunteer to do, like those socks, and then a whole bunch of projects that people who are very important to me and that I consider knit-worthy, or that I love enough to knit for anyway, who've asked me for things recently. And then there are a bunch of things that I just kind of somehow got roped into doing. So, gift knits it is. However, from there we have my very first whip, and I cast this on 2.5 weeks ago, right after I finished this bad boy. And this is the Bina V-neck sweater by Gregoria Fibers. Can you see? What can you see? I'm sorry that it's crumpled. I did wash and block it. You can see it's not attached to any needles. I did wash and block it, and then I crumpled it back into a bag, and now it's crumpled. But as you can see, this is a white sweater with a folded over V-neck stockinette collar, and it's a plain stockinette body, and then 2x2 rib at the bottom. And Rebecca of the Crayabea Knitting Podcast test knit this pattern, and as soon as I saw her version, I wanted one for myself. I messaged her about it to ask. I started checking the designer's page quite often to see when the pattern was going to come out, and I started following the hashtag so I could see all the other testers' versions of it. And I don't know what it is about this pattern that just, sometimes I see things and I'm like, yes, that one right there. I felt that with this, I felt that with the Ozetta Road Tripper tee, and I felt that with this. This is an interesting case for 2 reasons. One, I don't know if I liked knitting it, but I couldn't stop and I didn't want to knit anything else, which is hard to reconcile with the fact that I'm not sure if I like knitting it. And 2, what drew me, I hope this doesn't sound rude, but what makes me want this garment in my wardrobe is all the testers, not the original. I follow Gregoria Fibers, and I remember seeing the test call for this go out and seeing her post, wearing it and reels and stuff like that. And I chose to knit it in a very, very similar, I chose to knit it mine in the same color that she knit hers, and in the same type of fiber. In fact, this Drops Air is listed as an alternative for her Gregoria Fibers brand of yarn that she used to knit hers, and yet, hers is not the one that drew me in. And I think I should be honest with you guys about that, because if you guys go and look this up, you might see the same little things about it that made me think, okay, maybe I'll pass on this. But I instead urge you to either look at the hashtag for the bina V-neck sweater, or look on Ravelry at the testers instead. And I guess some problems just got ironed out in the test knit, or strangely, the sample yarn is maybe not the best yarn for this project, but I'm loving how this is working out for me. But I thought that kind of context was maybe important, or at least interesting-ish. And yeah, this project is ticking several boxes, I'd say. 1, I've had 2 balls of Drops Air in Off-White, which is this, in stash since July or August 2020, and that's pretty much as long as I've had a stash. So this is my oldest stash yarn that isn't yarn scraps that I have left over from my mother or grandmother. And I've been, increasing, I really do try and work from my stash, and I wanted to use it. And then a couple months ago I bought 2 more balls, because that's all my local yarn store had at the time, to do something with it. And I'm going to buy 2 more so I can, for each sleeve. That's why this has been on hold, because I don't have more yarn to continue for the sleeves. So that satisfies one thing. It gets old stash out of my closet and into my closet as a garment. And 2, I really, really want a nice neutral basic sweater that I can wear, that's oversized and soft and comfortable for the days where I still want to look a little bit put together, but I don't want to feel anything constrictive, and I want to be comfy and I want to be cozy. And 3, a nice neutral sweater, pattern unspecified, has been on my Make 9. I really want to reinforce that this has been on my mind as a priority for a while, and then I saw the bina V-neck and I thought, yes, that's the one. So I'm knitting this a size up because I couldn't get gauge. I'm a very tight knitter. I couldn't get gauge with Drops Air. I was not willing to knit this with anything else. I was not willing to buy yarn except for to buy more Drops Air to get a sweater quantity to finish up the white that I had in my closet already. And so what I did instead was I swapped 1 needle size down and found a fabric that I was comfortable with, measured my gauge, and went up 1 garment size to accommodate the change there, because this is already a really oversized garment, and I think I might have been in between sizes, or no, I was at the very bottom of the size range for the size below that was supposed to be my true size. And right now I cannot remember if that was supposed to be a small or an extra small, because European sizing is kind of weird. But I knit 1 size up. I'm pretty sure that makes it the 2nd size, but it might be the 3rd. When I have this as a finished object, I will check and report back with accuracy, but I haven't worked on this in 2 weeks, 2.5, and it's been a hectic 2 weeks with finals, so the information is now gone from my brain. So I'm knitting this on a 5.5 millimeter needle instead of the garment recommended 6, and I'm thrilled with that decision. I'm also alternating skeins, which is a large part of why I'm not loving knitting this, because there's literally twice as many ends to weave in than I really otherwise would have had. to make sure that, because these are in two radically different color lots, dye lots, that it's not going to be a problem and I'm not going to have really awful striping and color pooling. And two, I have mixed feelings about a drop shoulder construction. I think it'll look nice, I think it'll fit nice. I don't know if it's my favorite to knit. I think I do prefer raglan or a circular yoke, but I have two drop shoulder projects on the needles right now, so I don't know if I really believe that. That might be my only two for a while. And I think I might have actually ended up not going down a needle size and knitting this on the recommended 6 if this wasn't white. But because it's a light color, I want to make sure that the fabric is dense enough to not show what I'm wearing underneath. And I think that worked out. Because I'm working off gauge, I was very careful along the shaping of the two fronts on either side of the V-neck before you connect and start working in the round to make sure that I was still shaping at roughly the rate the designer specified in the pattern, even if I wasn't working at the same row gauge. I think I did a good job because I do like a V-neck, not as much as I like a crew neck or a mock neck, but I do like a V-neck, and I do think that this is going to suit me well in my nice neutral everyday wearable garment because it gets just, again, a little bit more airflow, especially since Drops Air is a blown yarn with a lot of alpaca, which is, again, we know is warmer than regular wool. And I really love this detail of the stockinette folded over collar. I have seen other V-necks before, but this is kind of what cinched it for me. I think if I was to do this again, I would do 2 more rows of it. And I didn't think I needed to be as concerned as I was about how low the V-neck was getting before I joined. I think I joined a little bit faster than I was supposed to, which is okay because I like a V-neck, but I don't want one that goes all the way down here. I don't want to have to worry about flashing people when I bend over to do anything. And I wanted to get some airflow, but I want a ton because I still live in Canada. And I just kind of liked it. However, on the designers, the neckline looks kind of funky, it sits up kind of weird, and I mean, I don't want to be rude, but it wasn't really for me. And looking at the photos now, I think that the gauge also wasn't for me. It was just a little bit too loose compared to what I typically like in a garment for myself, being from a wintertime climate. And I am overall very happy with my modification to knit it at a tighter gauge, and that is knowing that the Gregoria Fibers Cloud yarn that was used in the sample, Drops Air is listed as an alternative for it, but it is, I think, this is 50 grams equals 150 meters, whereas Cloud is 50 grams equals 120, and I think there's just a little bit extra bulk that fills in space just a little bit more. And I don't think that would be a problem if I wasn't a tight knitter, but I am a tight knitter, so it is a problem for me when I tried to substitute this. And I have a million ends to weave in, 1 because of the drop shoulder construction, and 2 because of my choice to alternate yarns. Oh, and I did choose to add a little bit of what I hope is subtle decreasing in the waist for some waist shaping, because I didn't like how much volume there was at the very end. I like a boxy fit, but not that boxy of a fit because I am quite short. I'm 5'1 3/4 and 5'2" if anybody asks. And it just completely overwhelms me. It's too much fabric for me to tuck into things. And so I'd added some decreasing in the waist. I ignored the instruction to do a tubular bind off here because in order to do a tubular bind off for a 2x2 rib, you have to first move every single stitch so that it's in order to do a 1x1 tubular bind off, and that just seemed like too much work. So I did a stretchy bind off, and I'm very happy with that decision. And I'm really looking forward to having this and being done. I think that'll be really nice and cozy and wearable, not for the spring and summer, but in the winter. I think this will be a really great classic wearable piece for me. It fulfills something I have wanted for a long time, which is to use this yarn. It fulfills my desire for a nice, neutral, soft, warm, fuzzy, kind of like a sweatshirt, but not really a sweater. And I think this will be something that I reach for a lot, but this does feel like a little bit more of a product knit than a project knit. And that's kind of that on my bina. I'm hoping to have this as a finished object by the next time we talk, because it's just straight stockinette in the round with some decreases for the sleeves, and then I shall weave in the ends and block it again, and eagerly await wearing this in cooler weather. Except I'm not eagerly awaiting more cooler weather. I'm so grateful that it's spring. I'm going to get the last 2 balls that I need when I go back to Toronto for Mother's Day and my mother's birthday. And so this is going to be hopefully finished soon, and I can show it to you. I'm very pleased with this. My next whip you will remember from last episode. Okay. It is my wild strawberry sock, which is a little pattern that I've self-drafted. It's a colorwork pattern all over, knitting it in leftover monochosky, and it has colorwork detail at the top. Oh, you're in the way, my little tail. Colorwork detail at the top for little strawberry leaves, and then this all over lice stitch for the seeds, and then I'm doing a heel flap and gusset, and I've been out of the gusset decrease section for a little bit. I guess I'm like about halfway down the foot. Got small feet, sorry. And then I'll do a toe. I really enjoy knitting these, but they have been on the back burner because there's kind of a time crunch with knitting the socks for my boyfriend's mom, which are on the floor over here, down here, and there have just been other things that like the bina, even though I don't know if I enjoyed knitting it, I knit that whole thing in a week and a half because I only knit that. I think I put in an hour of work on these that entire time. And I've just been kind of feeling monogamous knitting recently. I kind of really like working on only one project and then moving on to another. And I haven't been jumping around whips, and it feels nice to kind of clear things off the list as opposed to just working a little bit on a whole bunch of things. But this is going to be one of my primary projects for while I'm away from my big stash. I'm going to take this in the bina. And then one other thing that I'll talk about in a bit. And I'm looking forward to finishing them. I thank you all for your very kind comments and encouragements about them. I also got my very first email to my podcast account about these, asking for them to be written up in a pattern, which was very, very sweet. And I have not made up my mind one way or the other whether or not I think that's a good idea, but I really appreciated the email. It made me happy. And I love colorwork socks. I don't know what to tell you. I love, love, love them. And I love when I don't have to catch floats, and because I made this myself, I was able to do that where there's like maybe 4 rows that I had to catch floats, and then I set it up so I didn't have to for the rest. And using up a monochosky, which I had in my stash and have had for a long time. And it makes me really happy. I don't know what to tell you. Sock. I love them, and I think they'll be nice for spring. This is a nice summery sock yarn because it's 70% wool, 20% cotton, 10% linen. One thing about them. So this part is knit 64 stitches across, and I managed to make the colorwork dots fit into that perfectly. And then somehow when I decreased after the heel flap to 64, the pattern wasn't working right anymore. And I don't know why. I'm going to have to look into that and see if I can fix it for the second sock in case I do decide to make this into a pattern, which I'm not sure about. I'm not a designer. I am a hobby knitter. But it kind of bugs me. Like, it worked perfectly here. Why is it not working perfectly down here when I got to 64? So this is now a 62 stitch foot. Oh, did I say foot before? I meant leg. 62 stitch foot because that is how I had to do it to make the color work again. I'm wondering if I needed to pick up more or less stitches down here after the heel flap or what, but that's a mystery to me, and I don't have the knitting design know-how quite yet to figure out why that happened. Hoping a 62 stitch sock still fits comfortably. But yeah, wild strawberry socks, perfect for spring. I've been knitting them outside in a little garden and it makes me really happy. So that's that on that. And my last, but certainly not least, whip. And it is another drop shoulder construction garment. And this is the Field Day Jacket by Ozetta. And right now it looks like this. I have the back done and the left front, and I'm working on the right front right now. I am knitting this in, see when I hold it up I can't see what I'm showing you, and then I'm like, is this good for them? It's also rolling like mad. Like, look at this. Look at how much that's rolling. It's like a solid, like, it's like 3 inches of roll. This, so far, has been, interestingly, in contrast to the bina, which, again, I couldn't put down for like a week and a half. All the times I was not studying, I was working on that. It's such a weird thing where there are so many little things where I was like, about when I was knitting it, just because I don't love a drop shoulder, but at the same time I couldn't stop knitting it. I was enjoying it so much, so don't know how to express that to you guys, but I hope that you can figure out what was going on there and what I mean. But for this one, I also can't really put it down, and it's also a drop shoulder, but I have been liking it. And I do think that is because there's just a little bit more going on in the construction to make it more fun for me. There is German short row shaping. There's this contiguous. It's this button band that I'm working at the same time as creating the whole thing. You don't pick it up and do it later. And then now I'm at the point where there are increases along to shape that front button band and the front part of the cardigan when it comes down. And I'm really enjoying it. I'm knitting this in Green Mountain Spinnery Weekend Wool in the color Fawn. However, it is a discounted batch because I think the woman says she thinks it was off weight. And last time I checked their website, there was a whole bunch more off weight yarn on sale from them. I guess something went wrong in manufacturing. And I do notice at times that it is a little bit, there's like occasionally like 1 or 2 stitches that are a little bit thick or a little bit thin. I don't know if that's just small mill stuff. I don't know if that's like part of the issue with this batch. It doesn't bother me. I think it's fun. I get to that section, I go, oh, look at that. And then I knit it in, and honestly, you can't tell in the fabric at all. This is a rustic woolly wool, but at the same time, I still think it's soft. I do spend a lot of time pulling hay out of it. I was warned about that when I bought it. Don't really care. I've done that before. I have to pick it out of a Monochowski too. And part of the reason why I haven't been able to put this down is because I really enjoyed it. I have been learning new techniques in it. I've actually been learning a few new techniques this past month, which has been really nice. In the past month, I have learned Judy's Magic Cast On. I've only ever done one other top-down drop shoulder construction before, so I don't know if that's a new technique, but it feels kind of new to me. It's not as familiar as a raglan or a circular yoke. Never done this kind of continuous button band before. I've done provisional cast on for the first or second time, but like enjoyed that because I also know how to crochet, so it wasn't weird to wrap my brain around. And it's been nice to work my brain again. And I think the wool is part of why I've been liking this so much. I've been able to put it down. In a very engaging construction, but still overall a very wearable, what I think will be a very wearable garment for me. And 3, the past few weeks, I have just been craving this exact garment. There have been so many times where I have been walking to the store or to the library, or when my boyfriend visited last weekend, out and about with him, where my jean jacket wasn't quite right, my other cardigans that are store-bought were not warm enough, and what I really wanted, like for what would be perfect for this weather as an outer garment, is exactly this. And so that has also been really motivating me to just keep going because I really want it to have forever. And so I'm waffling over whether or not to take this with me on my trip because I really like knitting it and I want it, but I would like to travel light. And do I really need to bring 4 knitting projects for 2 weeks? I don't know. Probably not. But better safe than sorry, right? Because like truly, like what if I don't have any knitting? But also it's hubris to think that I can get through as much as I have planned in just 2 weeks when I'm also taking an evening class and working full time and trying to maintain all of my relationships. So those are all of my works in progress and whips. I'm gonna try and speed through acquisitions. So I have a few. The very first of which, I got blocking mats, sort of. Here's 2 of them. They're not gonna all fit in frame. There's a blue one and a green one. I also have a light red one. Someone was giving these away in Toronto. They left a whole bunch of them on the side of the road for someone to pick up. And they're the kinds of mats that you use on like kids' playroom floors. And it's like the soft foam, which is, I always look at blocking mats and I think, wow, those are just really expensive versions of that thing that I used to use as a kid in other people's houses. Like you make little forts with it or it just covers the playroom floor. And so I found these. They seemed in pretty decent condition. I got 3 and I left a whole bunch more so that if someone who actually had children and wanted to, you know, use them for their intended purpose could have enough. And washed these very thoroughly. There is still some like child grime that's just never gonna go away. Like, oh, this is the wrong one. But one of them has some paint on it. Don't care. A couple little stains. Also, these pick up like any amount of dirt that's on the floor. Like, oh, there's some hay that I picked out of my field day jacket. Just anyway, blocking mats. I now have 3. They're pretty big. I think this is all I'm gonna need. Got them for free. They weren't landfilled. Nathan brought them up when he drove here last weekend and cleaned them a bunch, and I'm thrilled to have them. So that is my first acquisition. I've wanted blocking mats for a while. My mom got me a bunch of blocking pins. I know you're not supposed to block them on a towel, but that's all I had, and now I have these. So that makes me really happy. That's acquisition number 1. Acquisition number 2 was also free. One of my neighbors, actually a few neighbors have done destashes recently and posted in our community group, does anybody want any of this yarn? I'm going to leave a box of it outside of my house. Take what you want, first come, first serve. So I got this ball of acrylic and this ball of acrylic. This is a little bit more red in person. This is a little bit more colorful in person. Those blues and greens are slightly more vibrant. And I got these 2, 100% acrylic. And then I got this little guy because I was wearing sunglasses because it was a very bright day when I walked over to the box to pick them up. And I thought that this was left over this because I was wearing sunglasses and it kind of blurred the colors a little bit. And then I came home and they were different. So these are mine now thanks to a neighbor who very graciously gave them away. And this is really soft and I don't know what I'm going to do with it. I'm thinking probably some type of homeware. This is going to become a pillow cover because my roommate just got a new pillow from IKEA, but it doesn't really feel like a couch pillow. It feels more like a seat cushion, except it's not upholstered, but it's very thin. It's not quite right for like laying on your lap to put your laptop on top of or your craft or laying against. And so also we tend to eat on the couch and then I don't know what to do to clean the pillows. So I'm thinking a 100% acrylic pillow cover will give it a little bit more of that like squish and weight to make it just a little bit nicer of a pillow. And 2, if I make it the kind of thing I could take off, then we don't have to worry as much when we eat on the couch. Because the reality is we are going to eat on the couch. And this is, you know, mess minimization. And I'm thinking I might wing it. This is, I think, a worsted Didn't come with any labels. As I think you can see, this is like someone's leftovers, and there's a lot of it. I'm not worried about having enough, and my plan is to still add this in here and make it kind of be like a trick where I knit most of it in this, and then in the middle just switch and use up all of this, and then continue with this, and then make people in our house do a double take, being like, wait, is there another? No, that's all one. Wait, huh? I think that would be fun. So that's what this acrylic is going to be used for, and it's from courtesy of a neighbor. Thank you, neighbor. I got this stuff. Next, so I mentioned in my spring and summer knitting plans and intentions video that one of my more urgent is the wrong word, one of my priority knits is the Streamline tank by Two of Wands in Lion Brand Kobu, and that I was going to knit it in white as a gift for my mother. And since I'm going to go see my mother, I would like to finish it in time to give it to her, hopefully for her birthday, but just in general before I leave. And this is the suggested yarn. I've already knit one of these. I'm going to knit her the exact same thing, except in another color because she asked for white. So I ordered 3 balls of it, which is how much I know that I need. I will have a lot left over. And this is Lion Brand Kobu, which is a cotton, it's a 50-50 cotton bamboo rayon blend. And it's very silky. It's incredibly soft. It's decently budget friendly. I got this from Yarn Canada. And it's a pain to knit with, but my mother is worth it. And realistically, most summer plant yarns are. So this is my third or fourth knitting project that I'm going to take with me to Toronto. I'm going to cast this on tomorrow before my train, and it'll be my priority moving forward until it is done. So that is my third acquisition. And then my fourth acquisition is I ordered another ball of Patons Crow yarn. When I was ordering these 3 from Yarn Canada for my mother, I also got this guy because I couldn't resist. I love it. I think it's so nice. And I just finished up, I was nearing the end of my boyfriend's mom's socks, and I knew that it was proof to me that if I use a contrast heel, I could get a whole pair for myself out of one of these. And I wanted to do that. And also there is in here, like literally 1 strand of kind of periwinkle purple. And for some reason to me on the website, it was more pronounced. And so I thought I could use my leftover purple sisu, Senna's Garden sisu, for the heel, but then it arrived in person and I don't know if purple is going to work. So I'm right back at square one with a ball of Patons Crow sock yarn that I really want to use, but don't have a good contrast heel for. And this is my last acquisition. So that is all that I have to share with you guys today. I hope you're happy, I hope you're well, and I'll see you in 3 weeks. Bye.